I never thought I'd end up here, honestly. My name's Mark, and for years I believed I had a pretty good thing going with Lisa. We got married young, built a life together, and up until recently I thought everything was solid. She's always been a bit of a bitch, sharp-tongued, often dismissive, and she's got this way of acting like she's the smartest person in the room. Still, I loved her, or at least I thought I did. Our relationship had its ups and downs, like everyone's, but nothing that seemed like a big deal. The first signs that something was off started a few months ago. Lisa became more secretive with her phone, always making sure to hide her screen or put it face down when I walked into the room. She'd get defensive if I asked who she was texting or who she was talking to on the phone. It wasn't outright suspicious at first. Maybe she was just tired or stressed from work. She's a manager at a boutique, so I figured maybe she was dealing with some tough customers or some drama. Still, the way she'd suddenly become so guarded, it planted this little seed of doubt in my mind. Then came the late nights. She'd say she was working late, but I'd call her office and the reception told me she wasn't there past 7 p.m. I'd find her car parked at the local hotels on her way home. Sometimes I'd catch her leaving them at odd hours. She'd always brush it off, call me paranoid or say I was imagining things. But I knew better. Women don't spend hours at a hotel on business meetings, especially not when they get so defensive about their phone and schedule. It was ridiculous how she'd lie about where she was, insisting she was at a friend's house or running errands. And then I'd find receipts for dinners or nights at places like the Grand or the Regency. The worst part is her attitude about all of it. She'd act bitchy, dismissive, like I was crazy for even asking. When I pressed her about the hotel charges, she'd snap back with some bullshit about business meetings with her client or some networking event she forgot to mention. I even caught her deleting messages and clearing her browser history. It was like she was trying to erase any proof, but I wasn't born yesterday. I knew deep down, I knew she was cheating. It was just a matter of catching her in the act. One night I decided to follow her. I know I probably shouldn't have, but I couldn't help myself anymore. I waited until she left for that business dinner again. I trailed her across town, watching her get into a nice black car I'd never seen before. She pulled into a hotel parking lot and I watched her get out. She looked different. Not just tired, but elated almost, like she was about to do something she knew she shouldn't. I saw her go inside, and I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and a sick curiosity I couldn't suppress. That's when I saw him, Tom. The tax accountant Lisa's been seeing behind my back. I had no idea she was screwing around with him, of all people, until later that night when I found the receipts tucked into her purse. They'd been at that hotel for hours, and I knew from the way she looked walking out that she'd just done what I feared she had. Cheated on me with a guy who was supposed to be helping me with our taxes of all things. It was surreal. The whole thing hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck and I knew I had to figure out what to do next, but I'm getting ahead of myself. That's just the beginning of the chaos. More to come. I spent the next couple of days in a daze trying to process what I'd seen. Part of me wanted to believe I was overreacting, that maybe I'd misunderstood, but deep down I knew the truth. Lisa's lies, the hotel receipts, the way she'd been acting, everything pointed to one thing: she was cheating on me, and with Tom of all people. The guy who's supposed to be doing my taxes, helping me keep everything legal and in order. Who the hell cheats with their accountant? That's just next-level betrayal. I didn't confront her right away. Honestly, I think I needed to figure out my head first. I started by digging through her stuff, her phone, her emails, her bank statements. I found more receipts, more messages that were deleted but still recoverable. She'd been texting him daily. I could see the timestamps: late at night, early morning. Sometimes they had plans to meet for a quick coffee. Other times she'd be gone for hours. It wasn't just about sex. It was the sneaking around, the lying, the way she'd pretend to be all sweet and innocent with me but then vanish into the night with him. I was furious. My mind kept spinning, trying to grasp the depth of her betrayal. How long had this been going on? Was I just some fool who'd missed the signs? I mean, I work a lot, but I never thought my wife was out there screwing around with our accountant. It's humiliating. And honestly, she's so bitchy about everything. She always throws tantrums when I call her out on something, acts like she's the queen of the world. Suddenly, I saw her as nothing more than a manipulative, lying cheat. I decided I couldn't just sit on this anymore. I had to confront her, and I needed to do it the right way. I waited until she came home from her meeting, and I was already boiling inside. When she stepped in, I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I knew everything. Her face froze like she'd seen a ghost. Then her bitchy attitude kicked in. She started lying, telling me she was at the office late or that I was crazy for suspecting her. She spun stories about business dinners, networking, and misunderstandings. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I laid out the evidence I'd collected, screenshots of her texts, receipts, everything. Her reaction was classic Lisa, shrill, defensive, and full of bullshit. She denied everything, called me paranoid, said I was accusing her of something that isn't even real. She called me crazy for doubting her loyalty, accused me of snooping, and then in her usual bitchy tone told me I was overreacting and making a big deal out of nothing. But I saw her panic, her sweat, her little lies falling apart. It was clear she didn't expect me to find out so soon. That confrontation tore me apart. I felt betrayed on a level I never thought possible. I never imagined I'd be cheated on, let alone by my wife and the damn accountant she's supposed to trust. The anger boiled inside me, but beneath it was this deep, aching hurt. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? The woman I married, the woman I loved, was now this lying, manipulative whore who cheated behind my back. I kept replaying everything she'd said, every little lie, every sneer, every excuse. It was like I'd been living with a stranger all along. That night was one of the worst of my life. I felt numb but furious. I knew I had to make a decision, but I wasn't sure what that was yet. I just knew I couldn't keep living in this house, pretending everything was fine. My trust was shattered, and I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to fall into a pit of despair. But I also knew, somehow, I had to turn this around, either by fighting for my marriage or getting out and ending the nightmare altogether. That's where I am now, trying to figure out what the hell to do next. After that explosive confrontation, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing with thoughts of how Lisa had lied, cheated, and basically used me for her own pleasure with Tom. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach every time I thought about the time she dismissed me, called me paranoid, and then pulled this stunt behind my back. I kept asking myself how I let it get this far, how I didn't see the signs earlier, how I was so blind to her bitchy attitude and her constant sneaking around. By morning, I made up my mind. I was done pretending everything was okay. I needed to see if she truly understood what she'd done and what I was feeling. That day, I waited for her to come home from work, trying to gather my thoughts, trying to stay calm. When she finally walked through that door, I was already waiting in the living room, dead serious. She looked surprised, maybe even a little guilty, but she quickly masked it with her usual bitchy smirk. I told her I knew about the hotel, the nights she lied about, her texts, everything. I wanted her to understand how much she'd hurt me, how betrayed I felt. But Lisa, being Lisa, she started with her typical bullshit. She said I was overreacting, that I was crazy for spying on her, and that I was making things worse. She threw in some classic lines, "You think I want to do this?" Or "It's just sex," as if that somehow justified everything. She said she was just trying to find herself, trying to escape the dullness of our marriage, and that Tom was just some escape she needed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was trying to spin it like it was nothing, like I was just being paranoid if I thought she was cheating on me with her damn accountant. I told her I'd seen enough and I wanted her to leave if she was going to continue this bullshit. She started crying. Well, more like fake crying, the kind that's designed to manipulate. Her voice got bitchy again, demanding that I stop acting so damn possessive, that I was attacking her for no reason. But I wasn't about to be played anymore. The betrayal hit harder than anything I'd ever felt. The woman I trusted, the woman I loved, had been lying, sneaking around, fucking Tom behind my back. It was humiliating. The way she acted, so entitled, like she'd done nothing wrong, just made me more furious. I told her she needed to leave, that I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. She threw a tantrum, yelling, crying, calling me selfish and controlling, like I was the problem. I was so angry I couldn't even think straight. I told her I'd had enough of her lies, her manipulations, her bitchy attitude. If she wanted to screw around with Tom, fine, but I was done. I told her this was the end of the line for us, that I'd file for divorce, that I wouldn't be her fool anymore. She kept yelling, calling me all kinds of names, but I just stood my ground. I knew I'd lost any semblance of love I had for her, and I wasn't going to be her punching bag or her scapegoat. That day, I started packing her stuff. I wanted her gone, wanted to get her out of my life. I still felt a mixture of pain, anger, and disbelief. How the hell did I get here? How did I get to this point where my wife, supposed to be my partner, was cheating on me with the guy who's supposed to help us file our taxes? It was a nightmare I couldn't wake up from, but I knew I had to take the first step to fix myself, even if it meant losing her. I still remember the way she looked, furious, spiteful, refusing to accept that she was wrong. That moment I realized I'd been a fool for trusting her so easily, and from that point on everything started to change. The question was, what do I do now? Do I try to fight for the marriage, or do I cut my losses and move on? That's what I'm trying to figure out. After she finally left, I felt a weird mix of relief and emptiness. The house was dead silent and I was left alone with my thoughts. I couldn't get her out of my head, though. The betrayal burned deep. All those years we spent together, building a life, trusting each other, turned out she was just using me as a fool to hide her affair. I kept replaying everything, every little sign I missed, every argument where she threw her bitchy attitude around like it was nothing. It's like I'd been blind the whole time. I knew I had to do something to even the score. I wasn't just going to walk away and pretend this did happen. No, I wanted her to feel the pain she'd caused me. I started making a plan, something cold, calculated, but satisfying. I wasn't about to let her get away with this, not without paying a price. First, I gathered all the evidence I had, screenshots of her texts, the receipts, even some photos I took of her coming out of that hotel. I wanted her to know I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of this. Then I decided to pay a visit to Tom. I wasn't stupid. I knew I needed to confront him directly. That bastard had been sleeping with my wife, and I had to make sure he understood what kind of damage they'd done. I found his number in her phone and I messaged him, telling him I knew everything. I told him I wasn't interested in fighting or yelling, but I wanted him to understand that I wasn't the kind of guy to take this lying down. I waited for his reply, which of course came pretty quick. He tried to act innocent, said he didn't realize she was married, that it was just something casual, and that I shouldn't blame him. I didn't care what he said. I told him that I was getting ready to take action, and if he ever showed his face around me again, I'd make sure he regretted it. I sent him a picture of her hotel receipts, let him see the proof I'd collected. That seemed to shut him up pretty quick. Good. I wanted him to know I wasn't some fool to be played with. Meanwhile, I also contacted a divorce lawyer. I knew I wasn't just going to walk away with a clean conscience, but I couldn't keep living like this, seeing her, thinking about her, knowing she'd been lying and cheating. I wanted her out of my life, and the only way to do that was legally. I started preparing everything, collecting documents, thinking about how I'd present my case, and making sure I covered all my bases. I wasn't just seeking revenge, though that's part of it. I wanted to regain my dignity and rebuild from the wreckage she left behind. The emotional toll was brutal. I went from feeling numb to furious to depressed, sometimes all at once. I'd wake up in the middle of the night feeling sick, knowing she'd betrayed me so royally. The trust was gone, shattered into pieces. I kept wondering how I'd ever trust anyone again, how I'd learn to live with this pain. It's like someone took a knife and stabbed me right in the chest, then kept twisting it with every new lie I uncovered. But I knew I had to be strong. For myself. For whatever future I still had left. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life. I didn't want to be the guy who got played and then rolled over. I wanted to stand tall, even if I was hurting inside. The idea of starting over was terrifying, but maybe it was what I needed, getting rid of her, cutting her out completely, and finding a way to move on. So I stayed busy. I kept gathering evidence, I talked to the lawyer, and I started thinking about my next steps. I didn't rush into anything yet, but I knew the time was coming. I had to make a choice, fight for the marriage or let it go. Honestly, I was leaning toward divorce. I didn't see how I could ever trust her again after all this, but I also knew that I needed to do what was best for me, even if it hurt. That's where I am now, trying to figure out if I should fight or just walk away for good. The days that followed were a blur. I spent hours in my head weighing my options. Part of me still hoped maybe she'd come back, admit everything, and apologize. But deep down, I knew that was wishful thinking. Lisa isn't the type to own her mistakes. She's too bitchy, too manipulative. She'd lie her way out, convince herself she was in the right, and probably turn the whole thing around on me. That's just who she is, blame shifting, always trying to look innocent, even when she's caught dead to rights. I started to put together a game plan for the divorce. I gathered all the evidence I had, screenshots of her texts, receipts, her hotel stay photos, everything that proved she was unfaithful. I was ready to show a judge the truth, to make sure she couldn't spin her way out of it. I also contacted a private investigator I found online, just to cover all my bases. I wanted to know if she had other affairs, if she was still cheating, or if Tom was just the beginning. The Pi confirmed she'd been visiting Tom regularly, sometimes even meeting him at different hotels for months. That was the final nail in the coffin. Meanwhile, I started building a support network. I told a few friends, guys I trust, to keep an eye on her, to watch if she was still sneaking around. I also talked to a counselor, just to handle the emotional fallout. Honestly, the pain was intense. I kept waking up with a knot in my stomach, feeling betrayed and humiliated. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, had turned into this manipulative, lying bitch who didn't care about my feelings. I never expected to go through something like this. There was a moment when I nearly cracked, thinking maybe I should try to save the marriage, maybe forgive her if she showed any remorse. But then I remembered all the lies, all the sneaking around, the hotel receipts, the texts, and Tom's smarmy face. I knew I couldn't ever trust her again. Not after this. The damage was too deep. So I decided I'd push forward with the divorce. I didn't want her back, and I sure as hell didn't want to be the fool she thought I was. I scheduled a meeting with the lawyer, went over all the documents, and prepared myself for the inevitable. I wanted her out of my house, out of my life, and I wanted to get on with healing. I knew it wouldn't be easy. Part of me still felt like I was walking into the unknown, like I was losing everything I'd ever known. But I also knew that staying in this toxic mess wasn't an option anymore. I deserved better. That night, I sat alone in the quiet of the house I'd built with her, feeling like I was at the edge of a new chapter. The betrayal still stung, but I was starting to accept that I'd survived this. I'd learned to move on, to rebuild what I'd lost, and somehow, I'd find a way to be happy again. Lisa's betrayal taught me that trust is fragile, and that some women are just selfish, manipulative bitches who don't give a damn about the vows they took. But it also taught me that I'm stronger than I thought, strong enough to walk away from someone who doesn't deserve me. Now I just have to get through the legal chaos, finalize the divorce, and start picking up the pieces. And honestly, I'm glad I found out now. Better to know the truth than live a lie. It hurts, but I know I'll come out of this stronger, even if I don't see it right now. Just wish me luck. The divorce finally went through a few months later. It was a long, draining process: papers, court dates, endless negotiations. Lisa fought hard, trying to spin everything to make herself look like the victim, but I had all the proof I needed. The texts, the receipts, the photos, there was no denying what she'd done. In the end, I got what I wanted: full custody of the house, a fair division of assets, and most importantly, freedom from her manipulative bullshit. Living without her was a shock at first. The house felt empty, hollow. I kept expecting her to walk in, bitch, and complain about something petty, but she never did. I realized how much of my life she'd taken over, how her constant bitchiness and lies had become the norm. Now, all I had was quiet, sometimes painfully so. But that silence was also a relief. The weight of her betrayal started to lift, slowly but surely. I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I started working out, meeting new people, and focusing on my career again. The pain of betrayal still lingers, but it's fatting a little each day. I learned a lot from this experience, mostly that trust is delicate, and some women are just selfish, manipulative, and not worth the emotional investment. Lisa's lies taught me to be more cautious, more guarded, but also to value myself enough not to tolerate betrayal. I don't hate her. I just feel sorry for her. Sorry that she's so selfish and shallow that she'd throw away a good marriage for a quick fling with a sleazy accountant. I hope she figures out what she's lost someday, but honestly, I don't care anymore. I've moved on. I've realized that I deserve better, and I won't let anyone treat me like a fool again. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but I also know I can't change the past. All I can do now is be smarter, more cautious, and keep trusting myself. The pain was brutal, but it made me stronger in the end. I learned that no matter how bitchy or manipulative a woman might be, I'm the one who gets to decide my future. And from now on, I'll choose happiness over lies, loyalty over betrayal, and respect over bullshit. That's the final chapter of this nightmare. If there's one thing I've come to realize, it's that betrayal hurts, but it also clears the way for something better. I may be starting over, but at least I know now what I won't tolerate, and how to walk away when someone isn't worth my trust. Life goes on, and I'm ready to face it, without her.